Good evening, everyone. We're so happy to have you with us this evening. We're going to go ahead and get started. This is the webinar that discusses professional development programs for climate change educators. And those who will be joining us this evening represent the U.S. Forest Service, the Will Steger Foundation, NOAA, and ACE. I'm Jennifer Hammonds, and I work for the National Wildlife Federation, and I'll be your moderator this evening. And a little bit about the Federation and the program I specifically work on is called Eco Schools USA. And we work with schools around the nation on issues of sustainability. So how can students work to make their school and their community more green? And then, of course, as a federation, as an organization, we work to combat the many issues related to climate change through our policy work, through education, and through our grassroots efforts. So with that, I'd like to pass it over to one of my colleagues, Kristen.
Hi, can everyone hear me? Jennifer,
yes.
Can you hear me?
Okay,
I can. Thanks. So yes, my name is Kristen Poppleton. I am the Director of Education for the Will Steger Foundation. And the Will Steger Foundation is engaging, empowering, and inspiring individuals to engage in climate change solutions. And so in my position as the Director of Education, I work in professional development and in curriculum development for educators, specifically focused on climate change and energy education. I'm going to pass it on to the next person.
Hi, this is Bruce Moravchik, and I'm an education specialist with NOAA's National Ocean Service. I also manage NOAA's Climate Stewards Education Project. The main focus of our project is in empowering formal and informal educators with professional development in climate and climate change science as well as pedagogy, and supporting them as they engage in climate stewardship projects with their students in their schools or with individuals within their communities. And the primary focus of our work is distance learning. We also do a lot of programs with many of the partners we see here today. And I guess now I would turn it over to Leah.
Great. Hi, everybody. This is Leah Cuspa with the Alliance for Climate Education. I'm the Strategic Director. I've been with the organization for about 5 years now, and I'm based out of Washington, D.C. Alliance for Climate Education is the national leader in high school climate science education specifically. We're an award-winning nonprofit dedicated to educating America's high school students about the science behind climate change and then really inspiring them to do something about it, while hopefully having a little bit of fun along the way. Right now we operate strategically in 9 regions around the country, most of the major cities like Chicago and New York City and Los Angeles, and specifically we know that if our aim is to educate America's high school students about the science behind climate change, one of the best ways to do that is to prepare teachers and both informal and formal educators with the tools that they need in the form of curricula and lesson plans and things of that nature to make sure that they have the tools that they need to really teach climate change science with excellence.
Vicki, are you with us? All right, well, Vicki's going to be joining us soon, I do believe, and she is with the U.S. Forest Service. She is a conservation education specialist who is spearheading Climate Change Live, and I believe she's going to speak with us in just a little bit. If not, I'll tell you more about Vicki here in just a second.
Hey, Jennifer.
Hey.
I believe I'm on.
All right, go right ahead.
Okay, well, thank you. Welcome to everyone for joining us. And I find I have a terrible echo, so I'll leave it at that for this moment. Thank you.
Okay, no problem. For those of you who might be joining us for the first time this evening, or who may not be familiar with this platform, there's just a few things that I'd like to point your direction or point you to. And that is, first, at the right-hand side of the screen, you'll notice a yellow arrow, and that will represent the whiteboard. This, of course, is where all your information is. And then if you go counterclockwise, you'll see a yellow circle around the word chat. This is where, if you have any questions throughout the evening, need to do a shout out to anyone, please do that in this particular area. You can send a message to someone one-on-one, or you can send it out to the whole group. Right above that, you'll notice the yellow circle around the 4 boxes. The smiley face are your emoticons that you can use during tonight's webinar. The next one shows a little timer with a person. We won't be utilizing that one today. And then the third box with the hand is if you need to raise your hand, stop us for a minute and ask a question. You can click in that box and we can attend to your question that you may have. And then the last feature is the polling feature. And we will be doing one poll tonight. And I'm actually going to change this to a multiple choice instead of the check mark there. In just a moment, you'll be using this feature, and you'll be able to choose from choices A through E. And I believe that's where we're going to go next. So which best describes you? If you'll use your polling feature to choose one of these, we will post those results. Great. So it looks like a lot of us are from the formal education setting, and then a lot of us, most of us, do not fit into any of these categories. So that's very interesting. If you'd like to put where, what you do or what who you represent into the chat box, that will help us hone in our talk as we go forward. Our agenda tonight, first we'll have Vicki give us a brief overview of Climate Change Live, just a little refresher for those of you who may be joining us for the first time or been back with us but it's been a bit. Then Bruce is going to talk to us about climate stewards and really the purpose behind climate education and its importance in the professional development world. Then Kristen's going to talk with us about what they provide through the Will Steger Foundation. And last, from the Alliance for Climate Education, last, we'll have Leah from the Alliance for Climate Education, who'll be telling us what they offer for professional development. We'll have a quick evaluation link that we'll send you to after the conclusion of this webinar, and we'll wrap it up and we'll let you back with your families. So again, we really appreciate you joining us this evening, giving your time for this important cause. And with that, I believe I'm going to turn it over to Vicki.
Thank you, Jennifer. Okay, I hope that's coming through pretty well. I have an echo on my end. How does that sound, Jennifer?
Yeah, I hear an echo too. If you'd like, I can do the overview for you.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, sorry about that. Sorry, I muted myself. I'll start again. So the purpose of Climate Change Live is really focused on the students. We want to get these kids engaged in the topic of climate change. Not only is it affecting us greatly now, but it is an issue that is continuing to grow and be pressing from today until hopefully we'll one day find a solution to these problems and be able to combat them. Hopefully we will be able to solve a lot of these problems that we see today, but it's going to take our students to be engaged and involved and become problem solvers. So we want them to get excited. We have many, many partners, and I'm not even sure if 25 partners is the final number. We may have even gained more partners, and that's what really makes this program as powerful as it is the number of partners who are focused on climate change education and really getting everyone engaged, not just students, but the teachers, the administrators, and the community involved in what we can do. We all have a voice, and we all have the ability to take action. So there's also the teacher webinar series, which of course you are a part of this evening. We have one more scheduled for February 19th, and I'll talk a little bit more about that at the end. And then what's coming up in March, which is probably the really exciting pieces, are the 2 webcasts that we have scheduled. And that first one will highlight Climate ACE's program, and it is, I just can't say enough about it. It is absolutely wonderful. If you've never been a part of or have never had the opportunity to have your students participate in an ACE assembly, this is your opportunity. You've got to get your kids involved in this assembly. It will be the very best thing about their entire year, I promise you. And the focus of our last webinar will be on the grant program that we offer, and that will be through Project Learning Tree's Green Works grants. The objectives for this distance learning program are provided here for you to read. I won't read it to you, but there are some spectacular lessons, curriculum that are available to you if you so need those resources, and they're found on the Climate Change Live website. So if you haven't already been there, I do urge you to go to that educator toolkit and really check everything out, from lesson plans to facts and tips. Just anything, any question you might have, you can find the answer there at the Climate Change Live website. This is kind of how the web looks when you go to the site. This is a flyer for Climate Change Live. But you'll notice these colors, and the things that we really want to bring your attention to is, if you haven't already registered for Climate Change Live and engaged your students, to go ahead and do that now. There are lots of things there for your students to interact with, to see what other schools are doing, what other students are doing, and really show them that, yes, I'm a kid or I'm a young adult, but yes, I have a voice, and yes, I can take action, and yes, I can make a difference. So if there are no other questions regarding logging in or the agenda or just kind of this refresher of Climate Change Live, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Bruce, who's from NOAA and is going to talk about the importance of professional development in climate change education and their wonderful Climate Stewards program.
Hi, Jennifer. Thanks so much. It seems like we're missing a slide here, but that's okay. I'm representing NOAA's National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, and I particularly work in the National Ocean Service, and I manage, as I said before, NOAA's Climate Stewards Education Project, and it is really a NOAA-wide program. And we established it a number of years ago to meet certain needs that we found when talking to educators across the country in various venues like National Science Teachers Association conferences, North American Association for Environmental Educators, individuals that we had met through other workshops, through our National Marine Sanctuaries Project and the National Estuarine Research Reserves. And, you know, one thing that's terrific is that there is good news. The good news is that the majority of Americans believe that global warming is happening. The latest numbers that we see here are from April in 2013, and we see that 63% of the American population believe that global warming is happening. Now, we don't know how these numbers may change after this extreme sort of cold snap that we're experiencing here in the United States, because we recognize that most Americans have difficulty distinguishing between and understanding the difference between weather and climate. And this data is taken from a study from the Yale Climate Change Communications Project as well as George Mason University. And this is good news, at least from what we see right now. The bad news, however, is that these numbers are really down from 2006, when they were really at a high from about 77%. This is taken from a Pew Research report. And this sort of, as you can see, goes across all ages from 18 through 83. Yeah, I'm missing some slides here, Jennifer. Well, and anyway, one of the things that we've found out is that in trying to address this is that we see that many educators have trouble actually talking about climate change in the classroom. So people who believe it's gone down, there's a great number of people, there are fewer people who believe that climate change is occurring. And also we find that educators are having trouble talking about climate change for a number of reasons. Discussions of climate change, as everyone knows, have become very politicized. And the science of climate change is very, very difficult. There are many different disciplines that are involved in understanding climate change: atmospheric sciences, oceanic sciences, understanding meteorological events. And so a lot of educators aren't sure of the science themselves. And of course, like any hot-button issue, loudest voices may not necessarily be supported by data. Now, in a survey from the National Earth Science Teachers Association, over 25% of the teachers surveyed reported that they were having arguments over this issue. And they were having arguments, and they were experiencing pressure from students, parents, administrators, or community members not to teach about subjects including climate change. Now, evolution and geologic time were the top two, but climate change came in a very close third, practically tying for second, as we can see. So the question is, what's a teacher to do? And that's one of the reasons that really my colleagues here, Kristen and Leah and Jennifer, as well as Vicki, who it really is an honor to be working with on this program, because they really do tremendous, tremendous work, are trying to work with educators to provide professional development and actions that can be taken. So for example, teachers can take time to learn the science like you all are doing here today, and becoming aware of high quality activities that are illustrating basic concepts associated with climate change. And organizations like the Will Steger Foundation and ACE are doing tremendous work in this area. Now also, it's really important that individuals and teachers focus on dispelling misconceptions. As I mentioned, climate change can't be happening if we have a big snowstorm or major polar vortices. And that's really understanding the difference between climate and weather. And although we are very much interested in taking action while teaching about climate and climate change, it's really a good thing to try and avoid advocacy, because to some it does decrease credibility. And also, of course, what all of our organizations are doing is trying to focus on empowering students, not to focus on doom and gloom, and that students, teachers, everyone in the community can make a difference. Okay, I'm missing a lot of slides here. Well, one nice thing about NOAA Climate Stewards is that our focus is on, and we are really a NOAA-wide organization between the National Ocean Service, the National Fisheries Service, the National Weather Service, and the Satellite Information Service. Our focus is really on trying to increase climate literacy amongst individuals who are joining our program. These are formal and informal educators from across the United States, with the goal that not only do they become better educated about the subject, but also that they become scientifically literate. And the educators, as well as the students that they educate, will be able to better discern quality of any information that they are receiving, and to know if it is if it's true and if it's honest and real. Oh, okay. So there are some really wonderful benefits for participants in NOAA Climate Stewards. One part is ongoing support from a national community of learning. We have over 300 educators in our project now at various levels from across the country, ranging from Maine all the way through California, as well as Alaska. We have got a great contingent in Hawaii, as well as Guam, and even some educators in Panama that are all involved in communicating about climate change, both formal educators from elementary school through university level, as well as many informal educators that are working at science centers, at nature centers, as well as museums and aquariums. And we've organized the country into 6 primary regions, and there are regional leaders who are also climate steward educators themselves, and we have monthly meetings that occur where individuals talk about what's going on in their classrooms, different resources that they found, different mechanisms that they find, and it's really wonderfully helpful to have this community of learning and support group. In fact, our group out on the West Coast right now are developing a rubric for assessing apps that they can use to learn and teach about climate with their students using mobile devices, which is totally done on their own. What we provide as far as professional development is directed professional development through a series of webinars and monthly national webinars and book clubs, as well as workshops at conferences. But we also offer many opportunities for independent professional development that individuals can engage with, because we recognize that having so many individuals come in at different levels, from being elementary school teachers to high school teachers and university professors, everyone is coming in at a different level and needs something different. So we really try and reach out to that. Now, in addition to this national community of learning, we do provide mini grant funding for individuals to develop and implement a climate stewardship action plan, as well as travel stipends as they become available to attend and present at key professional development conferences like National Science Teachers Association, North American Association for Environmental Educators. Even we've had some individuals in the past that have presented at the American Meteorological Society meeting, which is, I think, just about to go on, as well as the American Geophysical Union meetings. And we do hold contests from time to time with monetary and educational resource prizes.
Hey, Bruce.
Yes.
I looked forward and noticed there are several slides missing. If everyone can give me just a couple of minutes, I'm going to try to reload the slides. So maybe if you want to take a potty break or get a drink real quick, let me try to fix this for everyone.
That's okay. I'm actually happy to keep going, and we can go back and take a quick look. But just let me know.
You can go ahead, Bruce. I'll wait until you're done.
Okay. So now, although we do have benefits, as I mentioned before, we do have expectations from our participants. And as I mentioned before, that we have directed as well as independent professional development training, which we ask our educators that have joined to take part of. We also ask them to develop and conduct climate stewardship projects. And we also have 2 means of communication within our project. The primary one is a private password-protected wiki where every individual gets their own wiki page. And on those pages, we ask them to post their reflections of the professional development that they've taken a part of, any climate change classroom activities that they've engaged in, their stewardship project plans, as well as sharing resources, comments, and results. And what we've found is that in keeping our wiki private, individuals feel much freer to discuss issues that they're having in their classrooms, both on a positive side and in a negative side, and they're able to seek out other individuals by listing both email addresses and telephone numbers so that other individuals can contact them if they want. And of course, we do have ongoing evaluation efforts. Okay, I'm sure that Jennifer will be posting some of the focused professional development. One of the things that I'm going to talk about now is the Educator's Toolkit, which is actually on the Climate Change Live site and was a group effort between Vicki over at the U.S. Forest Service and her wonderful team, as well as a team that I work with over at NOAA's National Ocean Service, and some folks that we've worked with at NIH. And our focus here was in combating a lot of the issues that educators find. So, and this is on the Climate Change Live website, and the URL is here. You can check it out right after this webinar. And one of the things that we address are earth science and climate misconceptions, really key. And you can all take a look at these great resources. Yeah, Jennifer, we're going to have to stop. I've got a lot to work with here.
Okay, so everyone take a couple-minute break. Hey, Bruce, I need to go back to the beginning, so if everyone will just halt on the slides for a minute.
Jennifer, is it possible for me to show my own screen? I have my PowerPoint loaded.
And we can test my mic again while we're in the break. Sounds much better to me.
You sound great, Vicki.
Yeah, okay, I'm standing by.
Bruce,
Yes.
can you see your
Yes.
slides? Okay.
Yes.
I may have to forward for you.
Okay, that's fine. Why don't you go ahead? We've covered this.
Okay.
Too many slides. Okay. Okay, we can go ahead one, Jennifer. Okay, this is actually the face of the wiki that we had spoken about, that we use for individuals to log into. Just wanted to point that out to you. Next slide, please. And this is actually the face of our public-looking website, where we note some interesting activities that individuals from across the country have done. And there's actually a wonderful article, which is here, written by Christy, by Connie Christie, that actually talks about how to speak to children about climate change. And there are some wonderful essays that are actually written by kids as well as other projects that we've done. Please go ahead. And we've covered this slide. You can go ahead. We've covered this slide. Go ahead. Great. And as we can see, this is actually the organization of the NOAA Climate Stewards process, where someone will actually come in and join the program. They'll engage in at least 15 hours of professional development, which can be ideally both directed and independent, self-directed. They'll work to apply what they've learned in designing a stewardship project with a measurable outcome. And after they implement that, and they work to present their results, they'll post their activities for other climate stewards to use as ideas. And then so as new climate stewards come in, they will continue to benefit from the acquired knowledge of the group, where they can adapt and continue some of these projects across the nation. Next slide, please. Here's an example of some of the professional development webinars that we run every month, and they're hosted by myself and Peg Steffen and Molly Harrison, another one of our coordinators. We cover such things as extreme weather and impacts on climate. We've looked at websites such as climate.gov and all of the resources that they can bear and how to use them most effectively with students, including a wonderful climate timeline that they have in the site, as well as looking at impacts of climate change on ecosystems, such as on the bottom right where you can see on coral reefs, as well as looking at paleoclimate. Only by understanding past climates can we really have a clue as to how current climate change will be impacting us. Next slide, please. And I had mentioned the monthly book club, which Peg Steffen runs on the once a month, and we just had a wonderful discussion from Barbara Kingsolver's latest novel that was very spirited. Just as we didn't think we were ever going to have time to close that one up, but it was just a great conversation, as well as regional meetings and workshops, which we've discussed. We're actually in the process of looking to see if we can actually plan some regional meetings coming up in the late spring. We've mentioned NSTA and some of the self-directed activities. Next slide, please. And as I've said before, the Educator's Toolkit, where I had just left off, and the first thing that we had worked to do in putting this together with the Forest Service and the National Institutes of Health and several other partners was try and address earth science and climate misconceptions, which are a major issue for many educators that are trying to teach earth sciences and climate science in the classroom. Next slide, please. And we look to address some of the major issues that teachers may have issues with by providing resources as well as activities so that educators can address climate change of the past, understanding and being able to try and teach paleoclimatology or understanding past climates through understanding proxy data, as well as presenting what the current state of climate knowledge is through a series of resources. And finally, we're trying to present and understand what some of the impacts of climate change are. First, initially, through presenting a series of information as well as activities focused on human health, which is a major concern of many individuals related to climate change. Next slide, please. As well as looking at climate change impacts on ecosystems, on economies, as well as on organisms. And finally, one of the last sections, which actually dovetails beautifully into Climate Change Live and stewardship projects, are what you can do, what students can do, what individuals can do to try and mitigate the effects of climate change. Next slide, please. And that takes us right into the second primary aspect of NOAA Climate Stewards, which are stewardship projects. And we look to promote and to support projects where individuals take action to mitigate the effects of climate change. We like to focus on reducing carbon sources, increasing carbon sinks, and we try and encourage individuals to keep projects manageable at a reasonable size for them to engage in. We're not looking for gigantic projects unless that's the kind of thing that somebody wants to do. And believe me, we've had a few of those. It's very important that any kind of project that individuals engage in, as well as for those folks that are on the line right now, that they should be meaningful. Success is really going to stem from empowerment, and we try and encourage individuals to develop projects where students or community members are the main drivers in terms of picking areas of interest. And one thing that we also try and support are that projects that have aspects that are motivational, that they are quantifiable, where individuals can measure the amount of greenhouse gases that are impacted, and having a project that's competitive doesn't hurt either. Next slide, please. We support these projects, as I've said before, through mini-grant funds. We provide rubrics so that individuals can develop projects, as well as templates for reporting and presenting their projects. And we have a very strong, we recognize the importance and the necessity of engaging in evaluation. So due to that, we have worked to develop and provide audience knowledge surveys for educators to use with the individuals that they're doing these projects with. And we have an educational, a third-party outside educational evaluator that works with us, as well as our regional leaders and NOAA scientists and educators that can work to support individuals in their projects. Next slide, please. And this slide is really just to show the wide range of projects that individuals have engaged in that have been in the NOAA Climate Stewards project. We've had an elementary school that actually engaged in an anti-idling campaign that was very successful. Over at the Hogley Zoo in Utah, they engaged in a polar bear challenge where they impacted over 7,000 students and really made a huge difference. I think that they had offset 52 metric tons of carbon through their work in only 1 year. Model UN climate change summits where folks really got a chance to understand the policy aspect of climate change. And folks that are working on impacts on wetlands, doing school gardens and experimenting with biochar to understand carbon sequestration. And some great folks out in Hawaii that are really looking at effects of ocean acidification on Hawaiian ecosystems. Next slide, please. And I would be remiss if I didn't at least mention some of our indicators of success, such that climate stewards that participate in our program, the educators, show increased confidence in teaching about climate-related subjects. They've adapted certain changes to their teaching practices based on what we've been able to, the information we've been able to provide to them. And many of them have, as you can see from this quote, expressed a true interest in continuing to participate in professional development experiences. And looking at the participants list here, and I see quite a few climate stewards, that really buoys me to know that they're interested in learning more about some of these other wonderful projects and not just listen to me go on about climate stewards again. Next slide, please. And we've also done some evaluation on the students who have gone through stewardship projects with those educators, and they've shown an increased knowledge of climate science, and this is 8.9 out of 10. They've had a real feeling that they can make a difference with climate and in their lives, and they've really wanted to they've shown a readiness to apply what they've learned based on these projects. And also something that we've tried to exemplify are climate science careers and their importance, and they've shown an increased awareness of this. Next slide, please. So I'm sure there are questions, and we've gone way over with some technical difficulties, which happens. But if you have questions, you may email myself, Peg Steffen, or Molly Harrison about NOAA Climate Stewards. The good news is the project is going really strong this year. The unfortunate news is that we have currently completed our acceptances for the 2014 calendar year. But in the fall, we will be accepting new participants into NOAA Climate Stewards. So if you are interested in getting more information about Climate Stewards, finding about it at the book club or the monthly webinars, please send me an email and we can put you on our lists. Thank you very much for your time this evening. I will turn it back over to Jennifer.
Thanks, Bruce. There were some questions along the way that I thought would be best answered by you. So if you want to go up and scroll in the chat and answer those while our next guest will be presenting.
Sure. I see one of the questions is mini-grant rules to individual schools organizations. Yeah, actually mini-grants are provided to either individuals or to, but we can give them to individuals. We prefer to provide them to organizations or the schools themselves for the individuals to use so that they won't have to pay personal sort of taxes on them. We typically have a granting process once a year, and awards have ranged. We try and keep the awards, as I said, they're mini grants. They average around $1,000. I see that's been my only question.
Okay, Kristen, you want to? Are you able to see the slides?
Yep.
Great.
Great. So I'll just tell you when I want you to scroll ahead. Sound good?
Sounds great.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you, Bruce, and thanks for setting the tone. I really appreciated Bruce's presentation because I think he really does a great job of talking about the need that exists for professional development in the area of climate change and energy literacy, and the successes that are out there. And Climate Stewards program is a great example of that. I'm here, though, this evening to talk about the Will Steger Foundation. As I said earlier, I'm the Director of Education there, and you can scroll ahead if you want, Jennifer. The Will Steger Foundation's office is in Minneapolis, Minnesota. We're in the center of the polar vortex, for those of you who are wondering. And we were founded by a polar explorer whose name is Will Steger in 2006. And Will founded the Will Steger Foundation really on a basis of his story, his eyewitness accounts of actually seeing the impacts of climate change in the polar regions over his 45 years of travel in those regions. And so we were really founded on this idea of the eyewitness accounts and empowering others to really recognize the changes that are going on around them as well. And we carry that theme through our programming of experiential and the power of just everyday citizens to see what's going on around them. Our mission, though, is to educate, inspire, and empower people to engage in solutions. And we find that including solutions in any climate change education experience or activity is extremely important. As we all know, this is a very dire issue, and this sort of inspiration is really important to not only talk about solutions, but ask others to think of their own. You can go ahead. I'm going to talk about our education program, as I said today, but we do actually work also specifically with youth. We have a youth program that's very robust and works and provides ongoing support to youth in the Twin Cities metro area, and then to youth as we define them, the college age and up to 30 throughout the Midwest. And you'll be able, actually, if you're listening, tuning into the March webinar webcast with youth, one of our great high school representatives, Bryn, will be talking about his experience with our youth program here in Minnesota. But as I said, I'll be talking about our education program. And so what we do through our education program is we support educators, we support students, and we support the public with science-based interdisciplinary educational resources on climate change, its implications, and solutions to achieve climate literacy. And we do this in a couple of different ways. We have climate change curriculum resources that are free to download from our website and also used in our workshops and trainings. We provide professional development opportunities throughout the year, and we have a pretty extensive library of online resources, including archived webinars, videos featuring keynote speakers in the past, which has included Dr. James Hansen, Bill McKibben, and Dr. Naomi Oreskes. And so those are accessed. I have the website down there on the bottom through our website. You can go ahead. The Will Steger Foundation's education program looks at climate change through the lens of environmental education. And I make that distinction because although we are based, of course, in sound science and the science of climate change, environmental education teaches about issues not only through science, but through language arts and through history and through social studies. And so we see the issue as interdisciplinary. And these key points here below kind of emphasize this, that the environment is interdisciplinary. The focus on skills building and the building of practices. And part of this is the effectiveness of really putting climate change in our place and recognizing how it's impacting our place and the solutions that exist in our place, making the issue relevant. And also, like I said earlier, solutions, we believe, is also based on just environmentally responsible citizens and empowering individuals to do that, and students and educators alike. Go ahead. So our professional development, the focus of this webinar, opportunities are threefold. We offer webinars ourselves. We also offer workshops year-round, and those are customized for different school districts, for organizations. We will work with an organization or a school district to see where they're looking to integrate climate change, or also consult with them where we see it being an important piece to integrate. And then really the pinnacle of our professional development program is our Summer Institute, which we've been doing for the last 8 years. And that is focused on climate change and energy education. And I'll be really focusing a lot on that in a little bit, but I'll describe the other two first. Go ahead and click it. So as I said, we are also providing a webinar series right now, a climate and energy literacy series, you can register from the link that's provided down there. The focus, our first one was Will actually providing his eyewitness account of climate change. Our next webinar will be focusing on international climate policy, featuring students that attended the recent UN Framework Convention on Climate Change in Warsaw, Poland. Students will be talking about that experience. We'll have energy literacy framework featured at the next one. Jess Schneidman, who's at the Department of Energy, will be talking about that. And then our final one will be looking at the National Climate Assessment. And what this webinar series aims to do is provide content on climate change, and then as well as educational resources for teachers to take that content and bring it into their education setting. Go ahead. Great. So our next, the other opportunity, as I said, are workshops, and like I said, they're customized and can happen in different settings, and these are some teachers participating. You can scroll ahead.
Kristen? So,
yeah.
Jan Steger had a question. Jan, can you type that in the chat box, and then Kristen can answer that question. I'll let you go ahead, and then I'll stop you again.
Okay, Michael Quinn had asked, is this the Will Steger of Ely, Minnesota? Yes, it is, too, since we're doing that. I don't see a question, though, being typed in.
Okay, well, go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Okay, I'll go ahead and I'll answer it when I see it. So, as I said, I'm going to talk more in depth just about our summer institutes. And as I said, we've been holding them for the last 8 years, and they all have revolved around different themes in the area of climate change and energy. The foundation began with a real emphasis still on expeditions to polar regions, and we really focused on the Arctic and the Antarctic, but more so on the Arctic and the impacts of climate change there, and actually did an expedition to Baffin Island, which was telecast and webcast back into classrooms, and a unique curriculum was developed around that. Over the years, we've also focused, like I said, on the next year was the International Polar Year. In 2008, we were able to bring Dr. James Hansen to the Twin Cities to speak to the teachers that were there, focusing on climate change solutions and the science behind it. Bill McKibben came in 2009, also talking about the evolution of 350.org. Dr. Naomi Haraskis came in 2010, and she is a climate historian, and this was really when all the big cover-up and misconceptions around climate change were starting hitting the news. We focused on Minnesota more specifically in 2011 and 12 because we had received some state funding there, but we're able to bring Dr. Jeannie Scott from the National Center for Science Education in 2012 to talk about science misconceptions and also how they are working to protect climate change education around the country. And then last year we held 2 institutes, one actually looking at the impacts of climate change on water resources, specifically in the Mississippi River, and then one that focused on energy and energy efficiency, and that was held at the Audubon Institute. Go ahead, sorry. So when we plan our institutes, there's some really important components that we focus on. We focus specifically on increasing educators' climate literacy, but also on their self-efficacy. So their belief in their ability and their competence, their confidence to actually implement. So climate change education pedagogy being just as important as the actual content. We have an emphasis on documentation and reflection, a lot of journaling. We are focused on a place and biome-based, and as I mentioned earlier, this relevance that occurs when we're talking about how climate change really impacts our place. All of our resources and our foundation is really in the standards, the state standards here in Minnesota, but also national standards, the next generation science standards we're working on aligning our curriculum with right now. And then the climate literacy and energy literacy principles. We are really do a focus on the use of current data and climate science. So we found that this is really important just because when you're using current data that shows what really has happened, it's harder to poke holes in what you're providing. And then we always follow up throughout the year supporting educators as they're implementing the curriculum. And then have a web-based summary of the Institute each time, which has videos and the PowerPoints and the resources that were provided during that time. And so I lost my screen. Is it coming back? Oh, I see part of it down there. Great. And so our institutes also always provide resources. And so over the years, there's been different curricula that we've developed. Our grades 6 through 12 and 3 through 6 curriculum are more in the Climate Change 101 area. The elementary level one really looks at how do we talk about climate change. It's more language arts based. Our citizen climate curriculum looks at climate change policy at an international level. It was developed before Copenhagen and asks students to teachers to teach their students about how does climate consensus occur and how does the process of how does equity occur in climate negotiations. And then the other two that are up there is an energy curriculum that we just recently developed, energy education curriculum that is for the elementary level that looks very closely at energy efficiency. And then a Minnesota's Changing Climate curriculum which uses looks at Minnesota and the shifting biomes. We have 4 biomes in Minnesota, and the point at which they meet has moved 100 miles north in the last 40 years. And so this is a pretty significant thing and interesting to talk about. Go ahead. I just want to include kind of a sample agenda of what you might see at an institute. We always include keynotes, hands-on exploration of the resource that we're using, getting teachers outside and teaching them how we can talk about climate change in the outside. We do a lot of phenology and observing of the world around us in terms of making those eyewitness accounts ourselves. We always include a breakout time for them to actually think about how they'll bring this into the next year. And this year we include resources. We oftentimes have returning teachers who will speak to how they've actually talked about climate change in their classrooms themselves. And so using this expertise from within as well we think is important. And then we always feature student action projects, students that we work with and what they've actually done, because from our perspective the students are really the ones that can motivate us and have a lot to share themselves. Just to get a sense of who we work with, we have, as you can see, a real broad range of elementary, middle school, secondary, and informal, other including government agencies, members of the public. So we get a real diversity of people that attend. And as I said, we do look at the climate change very interdisciplinarily, and so the different subject areas that are covered as well as the informal sector that attends as well. Go ahead. I threw this in too. It's a little bit hard to see, but of course we have a lot of Minnesotans that attend our institutes, but we are relevant and open for people attending from around the country. And in years past, we've had some webinar options as well for people to be able to actually join via webcast. We've done a lot more more rural or outside oriented events in recent years, and so it's been a little bit less possible to include that webcast option. But we invite you, no matter where you are, to come to our institute this summer, and I'll give information on that in a second. Go ahead. So we do measure our success and evaluate the teachers that attend our institutes, and we do see an increase in their climate literacy. The first question on the left is, the Earth's climate has changed naturally in the past, therefore humans are not the cause of climate change, and you can see how that changed pretty dramatically from beginning to end. And then you can see the same with the second question there as well. Go ahead. We also see an increase in that confidence and competence, what I talked about earlier, this first asking them personally, how well informed do you feel about the different causes of climate change? And we asked also, how well informed do you feel about the climate system, ways to reduce climate change, and a significant change over the course of the Institute. And then that final slide just being that increase in confidence that we see after our Institute. Go ahead. So as I mentioned, our Institute this summer is coming up August 4th through 6th. The cost we think is pretty reasonable. It includes 2 nights lodging, all the meals. It's almost 3 full days of training. We do offer graduate credit and clock hours as well for our Institute. And if it's just something you're unable to attend, that link up there, the Summer Institute, you will find the debrief for the recap of the Institute there in September, where we include all the different presentations that were done and videos, if any, were taken during it as well. And I just wanted to close. I have one more slide after this, actually, but this is a photo from our one of our institutes last summer. Of the 2, this one was the one that we held on the Mississippi River at actually Fort Snelling State Park, which is within our national park focused on the Mississippi River. And one of the great things about our institutes is the diversity of partners that we're able to bring in. And this institute, you can see our National Park Service ranger there, but we also had included a nonprofit, the Mississippi River Fund, as well as the State Park Naturalist. And this is at the confluence of the Mississippi River and the Minnesota River. And one last slide. And so, just how you can stay connected to us. We'd love to have you sign up for our Educator e-newsletter. If that's of interest to you, feel free to drop me an email. It's up there and it's at the end of the presentation as well. And follow us on Twitter and Facebook and all those great things. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Kristen. I'm going to go back into your presentation a few slides. I think some people wanted to copy down the...
I'll get it. I can get it. I'll
okay, great.
It into the chat box.
That'll be super. Thank you.
Yeah. Is there any other questions that folks had?
Not that I saw come across, but you might go back up through the chat and just and see if I missed any questions.
Okay.
All right, Leah, are you with us?
I am. You can go to the next slide right away.
Okay.
Hi, everybody. It's great to be with everybody today. I feel really fortunate and blessed just to be amongst the people who presented before me and the great organizations that are on the call today. So thanks everybody for coming. I am going to try to finish us on time, so I will go quickly through the resources here. As I mentioned at the beginning, Alliance for Climate Education is the national leader in high school climate science. You can go to the next slide, Jennifer. Today we're going to cover a few of our resources around specifically middle and high school climate science resources for teachers. We're going to talk a little bit about our role in that sphere of influence. We'll talk a little bit about our in-house resources. We'll talk about some external resources that we go ahead and vet for you. And then also a great resource guide to help you just have a one-stop shop, just a place to go right away to cut through the many, many resources that are out there to get to the ones that we think are the best. Next slide, please. So it all starts with our assembly program, and this picture, the photo here was taken at a Los Angeles school. This is a typical all-school assembly. We see more than 300,000 students per year in middle and high schools across the country. We do about 20% middle schools, about 80% high schools. Really depends on where the students are at in their scope and sequence for science. We've seen a little over 1.5 million students over the last couple of years. We've spanned about 23 states, and we've seen more than 2,000 schools. Our assembly is award-winning, and I just can't recommend it enough. It's aligned with both state and national science standards, including the next generation science standards. All of the information as far as the standards alignment you can find on our website, which is acespace.org. It'll pop up again at the end. The great news also about our assembly is that it works. It really sticks with students. We partnered with the Yale Climate Change Communications Project, George Mason University, and Stanford to do a first ever study of its kind to really measure the gains in knowledge, understanding, and shifts in attitudes and beliefs in climate change of the students that saw our presentation. The results were recently published in an academic journal, and it was very exciting because they demonstrated the effectiveness of our programs and that the science really sticks with them. I think the reason it's been so successful is that we really approach the subject of climate change, its causes and its solutions in a really groundbreaking way. There's custom animation in the presentation done by Free Range Studios, a really great animation firm that we've partnered with now the last 5 years. There's hip-hop music, and there's of course a live presenter, one of our lovely staff members that will absolutely bring the house down. If you don't know about this opportunity yet, I know that there's a few slides at the very end of the webinar here, but we're partnering with Climate Change Live that Vicki Arthur mentioned at the beginning. It includes really great partners like NOAA, the U.S. Forestry Service, and WWF. This is a webcast series, and the webcast, there's going to be an opportunity to sign up towards the end of the presentation today, but it's going to be streamed to classrooms around the country in early March, and the ACE Assembly is going to be featured, which is really great. And there's going to be a member of our staff that's going to be facilitating a live studio audience webcast with some of our student leaders. So make sure to sign up and have that streamed to your classroom. Last thing about this slide, if we don't have an office within 1 hour of where your school is located, we still might be able to arrange to come and visit your school if you're able to arrange a small honorarium to cover the cost of one of our educators to travel out to you from your special events budget. You can go to the next slide. So if you do decide us to bring us into your middle or high school, we've really got the resources you need to not only prepare yourself with great lesson plans, but also to prepare your students' minds, to prepare them to receive the knowledge they're going to get during the assembly presentation, and then a whole host of follow-up lesson plans to go deeper in several areas of interest following the assembly. We've got an amazing leadership development program and a number of resources around projects that students can do around climate. We provide in-school and community-based climate-focused leadership development workshops for students and teachers that are ready to take on climate projects in their own schools and communities, either through the classroom if you do experiential learning right in class, or if you happen to be a faculty sponsor, one of those awesome teachers that mentors an after-school club for middle or high school students. So either way, we have a really great leadership development program and a host of resources specifically around climate projects. Projects that you can expect to see resources from us and expert training from our staff include things like whole school energy audits with action plans to reduce your school's energy use, and administrators really love the cost savings there. We've had students do rallies to get a binding climate action plan for their district, and we've even had students in Boston go to their legislature and get single stream recycling passed for the entire district. So the projects range from very interesting school-based projects all the way to something really large scale that affects the whole community. You can go to the next slide. So if you're interested in learning a little bit more about us and you've got 4 minutes to spare, I highly encourage you to just Google Alliance for Climate Education, All Things Considered, NPR, and you can hear the 4-minute piece One of our staff members was on with Jennifer Ludden. If you listen to the show All Things Considered on NPR, you can hear a little piece about us and get the feel for what it's like, the exciting experience it is to bring our assembly into your school. Next slide, please. And you can go to the next one. We're going to talk a little bit now about in-house resources. We've got a number of resources, and they're all found on our teacher homepage, which I can chat into the chat bar just following my section here. Everything that you need to find is right on the teacher homepage of our website. You can see about the science standards in the assembly. You can see about lesson plans for before and after. You can see about our more lesson plan section, and we're going to dive into those sections now. Next slide. All right, if you do decide to bring us in, like I mentioned, we've got a number of things to prepare you to do that. We've got a baseline sort of worksheet that you can give to students that aligns with the science standards and also all the language in our presentation. We've got a lesson plan around figuring out carbon footprint, a really easy, awesome, super easy to facilitate lesson plan that's pretty engaging for students. And then we've got a worksheet that actually goes along with the assembly. So if you're concerned, man, will my students sit through this 40-minute assembly during the period? I guarantee you they will, but if you want them to have a little worksheet with them just to accompany the presentation so they really do follow along, or a little accountability there, we can provide that for you. You can go to the next slide. In addition, following the assembly, like I mentioned, if you're interested in doing a deeper dive into some of the subject areas, for example, a deeper dive into the oceans, no pun intended, we have custom animated and narrated digital shorts available. These were done in-house by ACE, by our staff scientists and our custom animation crew over at Free Range. We have digital shorts on things like rising ocean temperatures, coral bleaching, ocean acidification, and other topics that are ocean specific and they relate to climate change. We've heard from a lot of teachers specifically that these great videos, these videos that sort of introduce a topic accompanying a lesson plan is something that's really just a hot way to bring this information into classrooms lately. So really excited about these, and students love watching cartoons during class for sure. You can go to the next slide. If you're looking to see for yourself what students learned from the assembly presentation, or you just want to get a baseline picture for what your students might have gotten in the previous years of instruction, we have a really great climate change quiz that aligns with the presentation and the science standards. You can go to the next slide. And I can't speak about this next resource enough. This is science reports that were done by our staff scientist, Rebecca Anderson. These science reports are basically higher level climate and energy topics like El Nino, black carbon, methane hydrates, all these different things that aren't general for sure. They're much higher level. So if you're interested in, for example, assigning topics to students to do a report or to have some sort of debate in class or some other project, these science reports are so awesome. I highly, highly, highly recommend them. And within them, you're going to see short web-based science articles, and then there's accompanying student worksheets. So you could give out a report, for example, as an assignment to one of your eighth grade class. They would go and then read the science report. There's an accompanying student worksheet for each report to gauge what was learned, and then a web-based article, a current event article that goes along with each one of the reports. They're awesome. Okay, next slide. And next, I'll chat this into the chat right now actually, since I have the link handy. This is our teacher newsletter. If you are interested, I highly recommend signing up. You can get on our list, and every month, the first week of every month, you'll get something in your inbox with some really great new hot lesson plans, some new climate-specific videos, different contests that we run for climate projects where you can win grants for your school, all sorts of cool stuff. But I highly recommend staying in touch. Oh, and I see, Wanda, you like the Plastic State of Mind YouTube video. That was one of our staff members, Ashel, out in California. He's a music artist, and he created a video about banning plastic bags, a clear solution to climate change since they're petroleum-based. Thanks for that plug. You can find that on our website. Okay, next slide, please. So those are all the in-house resources that we've done in-house at ACE, but of course there are so many amazing resources. I mean, so many resources out there in the external world. And so we have a great clearinghouse on our website where we look at all of the resources that are out there and really try to distill them into the ones that we think are really awesome, specifically for middle and high school students. So first up is CLEAN. You've probably heard of CLEAN. ACE is actually responsible for the highest traffic rate on the web, meaning number of clicks to the CLEAN website. So teachers come to our website all the time to look for resources, and we're actually the #1 conduit to getting teachers to the CLEAN website, which is really exciting for us. It just shows us that teachers are actually coming to learn about resources from our site. It's the Climate Literacy and Energy Awareness Network. They host a really large collection of lesson plans on climate and energy for all grade levels, K through college. And all of these resources have been vetted by teachers and scientists, and we've actually done the work for you and highlighted our favorites listed by subject area on our website. So you can pick out the ones that are really, really awesome and tested by teachers that they've really reported back are amazing. Next up we have NEED. ACE has partnered with NEED, the National Energy Education Project, to bring you the very best energy education lesson plans around. And to accompany these, we have some incredible projects. Again, if you're interested in doing some hands-on activities in the classroom, specifically for middle or high school, and you're interested in doing our Unplugged project, we have a really great training so that you can do classroom energy audits with different kilowatt meters to get plug loads, and then actually create a plan to reduce your classroom's energy use. It's so fun. We've done that project in hundreds and hundreds of schools around the country, and it's been one of the favorites. And then lastly, this film, if you haven't seen it, is a great, great film to bring into the classroom. Earth, the Operator's Manual. It's broken up into segments. It focuses on things like humans and energy, all the different climate impacts that are out there, the causes of climate change. You can watch it in one-stop shop like a film, or you can break it up into sections and dive in with accompanying lesson plans that we have on our website. Next slide, please. Lastly, if you're just interested in cutting through all of it and getting to the best of the best right away, you just don't have time because you're so busy all the time, I can totally relate. Right at the top of the teacher page, we have a 2-page list of the best in-class resources, including curricula, climate news, climate communications, and even climate support networks that you can join, just like this one, to keep you plugged in and connected to the best resources out there. And that's right at the top of the teacher page on our website. So with that, we can pass it back to Jennifer, and I think we'll go into either questions or feel free to move on.
Thank you so much, Leah. I really appreciate it. Great job. All right, Vicki, do you want to take us home?
All right. Here I am with technology problems solved. And I would like to thank our presenters for keeping cool heads when the technology goes south. This is the 5th in our series of 6 webinars, so we have learned a thing or two about sticking with it when it gets challenging, and I'm glad we did, because this was a great webinar. So thanks all our presenters and Jennifer for keeping our tech going. So just to sum it up, our Climate Change Live program is a distance learning adventure, and we are so doggone excited about what we have to offer together as 25, now 26 federal agencies and organizations working together to pool our climate education resources for you in one place. And so each of us tells a piece of the climate change story, but together we really give you a place to find all of these resources and programs in one place, and you can rely that it's science-based. You're not having to search the internet and not sure what you can trust. So we have vetted our our members, our partners, and it's a good site. Everything's correlated to standards for you, and so I can't stress enough. First of all, our website, this webinar series you're seeing on this slide, this is number 5. Each of the webinars is archived. If you go on the climatechangelive.org website, you can watch the archives and see all these ed resources I'm talking about. And so the upcoming events, next month on February 19th, our last in the series webinar is going to explain our Action Grant program. It's being administered by our partner Project Learning Tree with sponsor U.S. Forest Service, my agency. And so we've put together a mini grant program to help schools that participate in Climate Change Live take it to the next level, help them get started with action projects that address climate change. So the grant period applications will be accepted after our second webcast in March. So please join us for that one. We're also going to have some students share with you about how they've used the GreenWorks grants to have successes in their projects. So our climax of Climate Change Live is coming up, very jazzed. We have 2 webcasts that are coming in March, and they're internet HD level broadcasts. Anyone with the internet can pick them up, and the first one's on March 5th. And so this webcast is based on the Alliance for Climate Education's award-winning assembly that you heard about tonight. And so it's meant to be an education piece that leads straight to inspiration and teasers on what you can do to be part of the solution. So it's setting the stage for our next webcast a week later on March 12th that's called Join the Conversation. And so this webcast is going to be interactive. So to give you an idea, we have 2 high school student hosts joining us to help us teach. We have a climate scientist, which is Dr. Catherine Hayhoe from Texas Tech University. She's very engaging, very straightforward, and concise in giving information, a wonderful climate communicator. She will feel like a combination of your best friend from high school and a hard-hitting climate change scientist. So we also are being joined by a meteorologist, a college student who has helped in Antarctica with ice core sampling and reading the ice cores to tell about the world's past climate and carbon dioxide levels. And we're joined by a student from the Will Steger Foundation to talk about Minnesota that you heard about tonight. So we'll have a audience of students, high school students that are interested in climate change to ask questions. And you can also join, when I say interactive webcast, you can have your students join by us by Facebook, by Twitter, by email, and we're going to have a cadre of our partners and scientists, climate scientists from NOAA, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, the U.S. Forest Service, and the Smithsonian Zoo, which are all our partners in this project. They're going to have their scientists join that interactive social media conversation with students, answer questions. And may I just say that when I say answer climate questions, I don't just mean for students, because we've taken questions from teachers on our website, our Ask a Scientist, and so you're welcome to join in with any of your questions too. Great chance to interact with scientists. So that's what we've got cooking on the stove there for you, and our job is to help you teach about climate change, give you the skills and the tools that you need to do it. And so please get on our website, climatechangelive.org, and register, and we would love to have you join us. More than 3,000 schools are already registered, and we hope that you will join us also. So thank you, Jennifer. I pass to you.
Great, thanks, Vicki. Again, here's the registration link, climatechangelive.org. And then if you will just take a few minutes, there's only 5 questions on surveymonkey.com /s/CCL5. And then if you would like to watch the webinars that we already have recorded, they are archived at the link below. And hopefully one of my colleagues will quickly type that in the chat box so it's there for you. I do plan on having this information archived for you early next week, and I'll be sending out an email to let everyone know when it is ready. I know that we gave you a lot of information. It's probably just all jumbled up in there trying to get into a file cabinet, but you will have the opportunity to stop and start and write down the information that you want so you can go back and see what are the best ways to get my students engaged and the best way to educate myself going forward. If you'd like to speak with any one of us as we move on from this webinar and go into our webcast, into our last GreenWorks Grants webinar, please feel free to reach out to any one of us. We'll be happy to have a conversation with you about any one of our programs or about climate change education in general. Thank you greatly for staying with us through our technical difficulties. I greatly apologize. I think there was a little troll just messing with all of our technology this evening. Again, thank you very much. Enjoy your evening and return to your families who are missing you this evening. Thanks a lot and have a good night.